Hello everybody, welcome back here to Motor Mouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. And we are now going to do our part 3 of our series three on the Dragon. The museum has this gorgeous 1907 Dragon here in the collection. Previously we talked about the history of the company and the car, and then we talked about Joe Tracy, who was a very famous racing driver of the time, who was hired by Dragon to be an engineering consultant. Talked a little bit about his background. And now we're going to just kind of bring these two together. Because Joe Tracy did something that I like telling visitors about, and I know you do too, because it's a crazy, I would call it a publicity stunt, but I'll let you.
That's what somebody else called it too.
I'll let you take it away.
So Joe Tracy, I mentioned this in the earlier segment, he was really into the engineering of cars, and he did all sorts of things with the steam motors, with gasoline motors. He had a dyno that he created and stuff to measure the power of a car. And so with that in mind, he's not just sitting there. There's a lot of stuff about cars back here, back in this era, that they were still figuring out, you know.
Right.
Do we do this or we do that? And he was like on the forefront of figuring all that stuff out. So he decided to test whether or not automobile engines could run on fuel other than gasoline or kerosene. And the more I started investigating that, other names started popping up.
I bet.
You know, I know Henry Ford did engines that could run on kerosene and gasoline and everything. He also dabbled in alcohol-based fuels. But Joe Tracy, this is about his alcohol-based stuff. And then there's other things. And we say alcohol-based, you know, think today, we got ethanol fuel. Everybody's all excited about that, you know, whether you're a farmer and you think it's great, or whether you're a gasoline guy and you think it's terrible. You know, there's all that. Well, they were doing this back in 1907.
Yeah, not a new idea.
No.
Most things.
Okay, so basically what they did is, it's a benzol is the name of the fuel that they use. It's a type of denatured alcohol. They also called it industrial alcohol. In other words, you don't drink the stuff.
Please do not.
Well, I guess you could.
I mean, yeah.
And that would be it though. Okay, so
you could, doesn't mean you should.
So what benzol is, it's a mixture of benzene, toluene, I forgot. I don't think I pronounced it right. And xylene, all right? Specific gravity develops more power than gasoline. So anyway, there's that. It's obtained from coal tar or coal gas used as a fuel. So there it is. And I'm sure it's even more than that, but you know, we're not going to get too technical.
Yeah.
Joe Tracy is not here.
He's not here, and I can't pronounce the names either.
So he did an experiment with the 1907 Golden Dragon runabout, and you're going to see an advertisement of that car. And it was a little roadster, so this is a touring car here, so you take the back seats off and lighten it up even more, and you're basically looking at it, okay? It had a polished brass body with copper fittings and silver running gear. So it was pretty spiffy. And I came across a photograph of that car, and you could see the way it was, you could see it was shiny metal, and it was like really neat. But anyway.
No expense was spared.
No. Well, the thing is, they were using this for advertising.
Sure.
And I'm glad you said that, because they said, it was in an endurance race. It came in second place, New York to Boston. It got a first runabout prize in the Quaker City Motor Club Parade, which I read they had 200 lights on it, electric lights. And Quaker City, I'm thinking that might have been Philadelphia, I forget now. Okay, most popular car at San Francisco show. So it was about this Golden Dragon. They were this was publicity here. But the most popular thing was the famous New York alcohol run from New York to Philadelphia. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So it went from New York to Philly and back. Began at Weber's Cafe in Columbus Circle, New York City. Okay, and we've talked about that.
Go check that place out
Oh,
now?
absolutely. Okay, Reibensweiber, you go on Google, you look at this place, and it was 5 stories, this cafe. Cafes to me is like this little hole in the wall place.
Exactly.
This is a big place. It would seat thousands of people.
Oh my gosh.
Like the regular off the street people, they'd be on the first floor. But then the second floor was like the upper class. Third floor was like the hoity-toity.
Yes,
to use
the
that word.
hoity-toity.
But as you went up, and the fifth floor was like exclusive members, and they had their own special entertainment, and the last of the Red Hot Mamas.
Oh yes.
I forget what her name. Sophie Tucker. That was it.
I think so.
She was fifth floor entertainment. Okay, because she was kind of like risque and all that stuff. Also, I found this out. I forget the name of it, and I don't think I have it here. There was a jazz band that went there, and that was the whole launch of jazz.
Wow.
And this is, I forget what year, but it's in that area. And jazz is spelled J-A-S-S. I think it was called the New Orleans Jazz Band.
Weird.
But it was really interesting. Here it is. Anyway, that's where it started. That's where this alcohol run started.
Hey,
now, I also
what a place.
found out that was also the headquarters of the New York Motor Club. Previously, I thought they were next door to each other. But I came across something, and they said...
they've got to have drinks and entertainment and dinner with them.
Oh, yeah. It says, it's October 22nd of 1906. Last week, directors in New York Motor Club settled upon new quarters for the club. And after November 1st, the club rooms will be situated at 300 West 58th Street, close to Columbus Circle, in the restaurant and hotel building known as Reibensweiber's. Weber's. Yeah, that place.
Sure.
As expected, club luncheons will provide popular place for daily meetings and so on and so forth. So that's where they hung out. And that's where this thing started, okay? So they have this. This car is going to be driving from Columbus Circle in New York City to Philadelphia and back. It said drinking glasses when they were getting ready to leave, which was on New Year's Day of 1907, okay?
Cold.
1 minute after. Drinking glasses were provided for the members of the press in order that they might taste the fuel.
Don't do that.
And only a worried warning from Joe Tracy, kept the force of state or the press from trying the mixture. I also read somewhere else that it was drinking alcohol they had in there, and they just were making a point. So, yeah.
We don't want that kind of publicity.
No, we don't.
No.
So, I came across something else that says, first to drive a car from New York to Philadelphia with denatured or industrial alcohol after the new law had taken effect. What new law? I asked myself.
What new law?
Okay, let me tell you, viewers, the new law here. Legislation relieving alcohol from taxation, which went into effect the first of the year. It's from 1907. So it was the free alcohol bill. They signed it in 1906. The USA repeals the alcohol tax under Teddy Roosevelt at 14 cents per U.S. gallon. Corn ethanol was cheaper than gasoline at 22 cents a gallon.
Wow.
And it keeps going on here. It's anyway, it costs. It says denatured alcohol, according to the annual report, Commissioner Internal Revenue shared details how denatured grain or ethyl alcohol introduced a few years earlier in Europe was taxed the same as wine rate, okay? So they took, this industrial or denatured alcohol were not taxed. And so Joe Tracy, it came up as an experiment to see how well he could run, but I don't know, it almost sounds like a celebration of them, taking the tax off.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Interesting. It kind of explains why other companies are trying to do this, because now they all of a sudden got to keep fuel source if they can make it work. I
Oh
guess.
yeah, yeah, and you know, and today they're always looking for that too.
Right, right.
So if the Pure Food and Drug Act put into effect January 1st, 1907, industrial and farm distilleries are given freedom to distill alcohol free from taxation, with the understanding that it be denatured and unpotable. So that was that. That
Okay.
was that. Okay, so his trip from New York to Philadelphia in our Golden Dragon, or the Golden, not our.
The Golden Dragon.
Okay,
yes.
left New York with Al Poole.
Al,
There he
of
was,
course.
his sidekick, his mechanician. 1 minute after midnight, returned to New York 2 days later. So I understand he went using the denatured alcohol. He used gasoline coming back.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
It cost $37 to go from New York City to Philadelphia with the alcohol stuff. Gasoline coming back cost $5.
Well, there you go. There.
So can you imagine if the tax was still on there?
Well, there
what
you
it would
go.
be?
I mean, that's an obvious.
Yeah. So, Joe Tracy said, aside from the price of fuel, I found that a very much larger quantity of it was needed than gasoline. And he goes on and on
he went
about
through it
that.
quicker.
And it's interesting because in racing today, locally, you don't see it too much anymore, but just a few years ago, they had alcohol-based fuels, which ran cooler and stuff, but they'd use it twice as much as gasoline stuff. So it was, I thought, hey, I remember hearing about that recently. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the trip, because the roads and general running condition, Joe Tracy was not enthusiastic about.
No, probably
So I'm
not.
going to be reading, it's quite a bit here, okay? This is from the Austin American Statesman newspaper of April 22nd, 1907. They are quoting, though, the New York Evening Telegram from January 7th of 07.
Okay.
I couldn't find that newspaper online, but this one I did. Joseph Tracy, the Vanderbilt Cup driver, has succeeded in, I have to put this down, sorry. Okay, has succeeded in smashing the long-standing theory that a gasoline car cannot be driven under the influence of alcohol.
Under the
You like that?
influence.
You like that? Okay. Taking his trusty Golden Dragon car out of its warm and comfortable garage on a recent dark and stormy night, he filled her up on alcohol and started in the fog and rain for the city of brotherly love. This is 1907 reporting at its finest.
Oh yeah.
Right?
There's a certain way about the.
When the
this
Golden
writing.
Dragon, running under the inspiration of the new fuel, came in contact with the old, worn-out Newark plank road, she began to grab up all the loose planks in sight and hurl them through the midnight fog. Isn't that great? After removing enough planks to fill a good-sized lumber yard, she was suffering with a sprained front axle.
Aw.
It was then 1 o'clock in the morning, and the rain was coming down at the rate of 142 buckets per ton a mile.
Wow.
Okay. Daredevil Joe, as William K. Vanderbilt Jr. once dubbed Tracy, decided to camp under the shade of a village blacksmith shop until daylight. The village smithy was suffering from rheumatism that morning and did not appear until 7 o'clock. At noon, the axle was restored, and Tracy resumed his mad, alcoholic plunge through the biting storm. After negotiating the wrong road for 19 miles, he retraced his steps through the trackless woods, as he now remembers it, to the fascinating town of Rahway, covered in mud up to his eyebrows. The beautiful Golden Dragon, with its bronze hood and body and its silver-plated running gear, was a study in Jersey slush. And I think that was so cool that that was written that way. So anyway,
Wow, he was on one of the plank roads.
yeah, the plank road. I remember you talking about that.
I do
yeah.
like a plank road.
So So there, he had a rough trip, but he made it, and I told you the results of that, and you know, the gasoline was a lot cheaper than that. Now, it's interesting, a little more than a year later, he drove another car with alcohol-based fuel from New York to Philadelphia and back. And that was a Holtan, which they only made 1 year. It was out in Newark, New Jersey, they were making these cars. And Holtan has kind of connections with our SGV in a roundabout way, but we won't get into that.
Maybe another day.
But they had problems, and they almost abandoned their test because they had impurities in fuel. They said sand and straw. Now, how you get straw in your fuel, I don't know, but they didn't strain it well enough. They also had defective ignition and such. And at the end, the Holtan company said that their car was totally capable of running economically on benzol. In order to get more detailed information of scientific nature, we shall repeat the experiment in the near future. The near future never
Didn't
came
happen,
for
did
Holtan,
it?
okay? Okay. All right, so here's even some cooler stuff, okay? If we haven't heard enough cool
I know,
stuff, this is
that
even
article was,
better. Yeah. Okay, so I came across some other instances of people having alternative fuel in cars. Now, one of them's from 1921 and the second one's from 1920, all right? So 1921 was, it said a promoter, promoters in quote marks here, okay? Promoter had a mysterious green powder when dissolved in a pail of pure spring water, turned instantly into high-grade gasoline.
what?
Yeah, what? So he gave it a demonstration for interested businessmen. And they kind of questioned about him, and he just drew a pail of water from a well, added his power, and ran an automobile for miles. Well, these businessmen questioned him enough, he says, okay, I'll do another demonstration for you. Because he wouldn't tell them what the
it was.
ingredients or
It's
anything.
a proprietary blend.
Well, the businessman watched them closer and discovered he had no formula. He actually had high-grade gasoline and put it into the tank. So he did the sleight of
The old
hand
bait
thing.
and switch.
You got it. You got it.
It's a
And so,
snake oil
you know, it wasn't
salesman.
just showing business, but it's probably future investors. And he said, whoop, okay. Okay, that was 1921. But we're going to go back another year because here's the best one, okay? A guy named P. John Chassler, he came up with something called fermogas, you know, like fermentation, I guess. That's
Okay,
fermogas, Fermogas.
Okay.
He said that fermogas process for making industrial alcohol cost 6 cents a gallon, all right?
Okay.
He made a big deal about this. He was announcing and stuff, and but he wouldn't make the public announcement. I guess he was just giving hints. Again, he mailed circulars on this. He got a bunch of businessmen to come, and and before he could do that, he appealed to towns, and this is kind of interesting. Towns, it says, okay, you could use an abandoned brewery or distillery. We're talking 1921 or 1920. Prohibition. All these shut down, and so he was kind of appealing to that end too. And I just came across that connection yesterday.
True.
So anyway, so he ends up, and now he's calling himself Professor Chassler.
Oh boy.
Demonstrating his marvelous process. He showed a barrel filled of waste vegetable matter to all these businessmen. It says, after performing various evolutions, whatever that might mean, he drew from it a quantity of undoubted alcohol. And then he was interrupted by these businessmen who were looking, future investors here. They entered an adjoining room, discovering that the professor had a 5-gallon container of alcohol ingeniously connected by pipes with the barrel from which he drew the fluid. So he actually was saying, okay, this vegetable matter here is, you know, I'm creating this real quick for you.
Decomposing.
But there's a wall, and the real fuel, which was alcohol, was based on the other side of the wall. So, some quotes here. This is Pure Products magazine here, trade magazine, I guess. Okay, Chassler, who's also known as Professor Chassler, was arrested in the office of Assistant Attorney Lazarus in Criminal Courts Building. At the end of an investigation, the prosecutor has been conducting into the affairs of the Thermogas Company, Chassler Process Company, and Industrial Research Company. Okay. Also from the same magazine, Mr. Lazarus, the district attorney, who ordered Chassler's arrest, said Chassler would be arraigned in Toombs Court and that he would ask that the prisoner be held in $10,000 bail pending action by the grand jury. So there it goes. It doesn't pay to do this kind of stuff.
It does not.
Be honest.
That's right.
Be honest.
Be honest.
Yes.
You out there, be honest.
Okay. So it's just kind of interesting, some of the stuff that's going on there. And I found other things about people who are doing this. So that's pretty much it about Joe Tracy, his run to Philadelphia with denatured or industrial alcohol, and other people were trying that, and so that's it.
Wow.
And again, I would like to thank Matt Hocker of the AACA Library, and who scanned 92 pages of dragon stuff, he just sent that. Doug Walters was the one who scanned it. I'd like to thank him too. So thank you both.
Yes, thanks to both of you. Great information.
Oh yeah.
Great information.
Okay.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us on our
journey through.
Our journey on the dragon.
Yeah. Through the plank roads of Newark, New Jersey.
That's right. I'm so impressed that we had 3 whole things about that. Really got 2 out of the Daniels.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us, learning all about this car and the people are behind it and around it. Come see us and the car in person here at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.